In this presentation, I'll be talking about the book Born Both, An Intersex Life by Hida Valoria. In order to understand the book as a whole, you have to look at Hida, the author. She is an intersex person, making up part of the 1.7% of our population, or roughly 1 in 2,000 people, that are intersex. She is also, on top of that, a self-identifying lesbian, part of the Latinx community, and at the beginning of the book, self-identifying cisgender woman, later referring to herself as non-binary, gender non-conforming, and genderqueer. Family makes up her older brother, younger sister, religious mother, her unfortunately abusive father. As mentioned earlier, Hida is one of the many people that make up the roughly 1.7% of our population that is intersex. In doing so, she is an activist. She has pushed against the invisibility that has been created by our society for intersex people, as well as pushing against invasive surgeries called IGM, which is better known as intersex gender mutilation, in which a doctor, generally the doctor that delivers the baby at the hospital, upon realizing that the newborn baby is intersex, will recommend to the parents that they have a very invasive surgery done. This is done so that the child can better fit, quote unquote, in our society due to the many binaries that have been created. Along with this, she is a strong advocate against the term DSD, which has been used interchangeably with the term intersex. DSD, otherwise known as disorders of sexual development, is essentially the same thing as being intersex. However, the term tends to carry a lot of hate, as simply being put, the term disorder implies that being intersex is a bad thing and there's many negative connotations that go along with it. Unfortunately, as discussed in the book, a lot of the younger population, roughly people our age who are intersex, are told that DSD is the proper term, and truthfully didn't even know intersex was a term until much later in life, or more recently, when the term has become more visible and accepted by the community. On top of being an activist for all the possible intersex people, she is also an author. She has written many articles for CNN. She has been on talk show hosts such as Oprah. Obviously, wrote her own book. And has been to many conferences speaking on behalf of the intersex community. Hida's intersex variation is that her clitoris is enlarged. It resembles the head of a penis. She also refers to it as a micropenis. She has stated in the book multiple times that she has been able to utilize this enlarged clitoris to penetrate her cisgender female partners. Unfortunately, when she was in 7th grade, Hida was sexually assaulted for the first time. And when this happened, she found out that she was, in fact, quote-unquote, different than all the other girls in her class, and not just assuming that she is anymore. This is because the boy that had sexually assaulted her realized that her clitoris was, in fact, significantly larger than the other girls that he had presumably seen naked. The assumption that she was not quote-unquote normal came from the fact that she didn't urinate out of the hole that she had thought she was supposed to, or that most cisgender females do. One of the many course concepts that was discussed in the book is is Heather's gender expression. As I stated earlier, she originally thought of herself as a cisgender female and dressed very feminine and wore lots of makeup, cut her hair as so, expressed herself that way. Until one point, she had slept with a bisexual coworker who essentially told her that she was only experimenting with her sexuality with Heather, which unfortunately caused Heather to experience great bouts of depression and anger and disgust and all this confusion. And as a result, her gender expression switched to be more masculine. In doing so, she has been seen as a male by society and even was considering legally transitioning to male. She recalls being able to walk more proud and have a scowl on her eyebrow and simply demanded more respect from society, which was promptly given because of the gender binary that we have in our society. And many people saw her as a cisgender male. As the book goes on, she does end up experiencing other gender expressions, such as referring to herself as a hermaphrodite, which is essentially, in her words, a lesbian intersex person, and she's able to express herself as such. At one point, before an interview, she is wearing eyeliner, no undershirt, and a vest, while having her hair dressed in a mohawk. She also refers to herself a couple times throughout the book using the they, them, their pronouns, which are often correlated with, again, genderqueer, gender neutral, gender fluid individuals. It feels as though her gender expression and how she feels as a person is all over the spectrum. One day feeling very feminine, one day feeling very masculine. Never feeling really exactly one for periods of time. And as a result, she's fought for the option to put X as her identified sex on her passports, driver's license, etc. Another class concept, intersectionality, or how categories of discrimination overlap in a person's life that makes them experience discrimination on multiple interacting levels, was seen throughout the book. Specifically, as stated earlier, Heba is an intersex woman. She is non-binary, gender non-conforming as of right now, Latinx, and a self-identifying lesbian. We first see the intersectionality taking place when she's in middle school. It happens when male classmates, presumably her male classmates, begin calling her a monkey and making monkey noises. And this is because she is, again, Latinx and her skin tone is more darker colored. And as an intersex person, her body is able to grow hair faster and assumingly better than cisgender women are able to do, such as on her lip, she is able to grow a mustache, her arms are hairier, legs, all according to herself. All of this put together seemingly made her look like a quote-unquote monkey to those classmates. Along with this, being a person of color, a woman of color, when she was at a conference talking about intersex women in sports, she was immediately shut down by her fellow activists, all of whom were white, that were mostly intersex at the same convention. She explains that being a self-identifying woman of color, she's already put at a disadvantage because it's presumed that, women of color don't know anything about sports. Clearly, Heather does, and that, again, is not the case. In terms of Heather's sex life, she was fetishized by many of her sexual partners for her gender expression, even stating that girls only liked quote-unquote cute boy Heather or quote-unquote pretty girl Heather. No mix of both. This can also be seen when she was living in San Francisco, many of the lesbian community was pushing for her to identify as butch or femme, not how she wanted to. She was also fetishized for the size of her clitoris and being able to penetrate her sexual partners with it. Final course concept: systemic prejudice, or rather more specifically, cisgenderism, denies individuals gender identities that do not align with those that are assigned at birth. For example, being transgender or genderqueer would go directly against cisgenderism. In Heather's case, she was assigned at birth to be female and identifying as intersex because that's how she identifies and who she is and what she is, would go against the cisgenderism ideology. We also see cisgenderism taking place when Heather's expressing herself as either masculine or feminine, until later in the book when she, again, refers to herself as a hermaphrodite or gender fluid, gender queer, all terms like that she identifies as. We can also see that at the conference Heather was at, when discussing the fact that the Olympics were requiring female athletes to take tests to affirm their sex, directly correlates with the cisgenderism that we see in the book. It's discussed that multiple athletes who were assigned female at birth were in fact intersex and competing in the Olympics. Since they are not quote-unquote biological females, they were disqualified for being quote-unquote too masculine and giving them a quote-unquote advantage over the cisgender female assigned at birth competitors. Lastly, we see cisgenderism taking place in the term DSD, or as I mentioned earlier, disorders of sexual development. A roughly newer term that is genuinely demeaning and infers that being intersex is in fact a disorder, which is not the case. It is used as a reason for IgM, or again, the invasive gender manipulation, so that the doctor can perform surgery on the newborn child, so that the child would be, again, quote-unquote normal and fit in with society and its binaries, whether it be reassigning the sex to male or to female.